which means that you try to understand different components, you try to draw them, you try to simulate them. There is a simulator. This is a advanced simulator where you try to simulate the response of different networks, and depend on the values of that networks, uh, you get an estimation, and then you lay it out, and then you do electromagnetic simulation. So what I will show you here is, for example, this is a schematic, which means this is where you will draw everything. So to start with, let me show you some basic things, right? I can i can put a resistor, I can put an inductor, I can put a capacitor. So these all are like ideal resistor, inductor, capacitor. So if you want to do an ideal simulation, for example, if I ask you to make a resistor divider, you can use this resistor, you can copy this, paste it, and you can pretty much draw any circuit with help of these ideal components. So these are ideal components. But as we studied in our last lecture, and in our first lecture, in fact, there is nothing called as ideal scenario in the practical world, especially at RF frequencies. So for example, an inductor, right? So for inductor, you will have something called as like RL, or you can have RLC. Basically, you are defining what is the inductance, but then also you are defining what is the resistance value and what is the capacitance value. Similarly, in a capacitor, you will have the either you can use the same series RLC equivalent of it, or you can use a capacitor with something called as Q, or the quality factor. And so these are more non-ideal kind of components. So for doing the simulation, what basically you do, so let's take an example, right? Let me use an LC resonator. So let's have inductor and a capacitor, and I'm making a tank network. So I can connect these with wires here, okay? And I want to measure what will be the response of this network. So to do any sort of simulation, you will have to understand something called as S parameter. Anyone knows what S parameters are, or did you guys ever studied about S parameters in your previous lectures or your previous course? Did you guys ever studied about S parameters? Yes or no?
Sir, we calculated S parameters for certain antennas and
Right.
we
So
designed it
I
in
mean, you guys might have done some theoretical derivation and stuff, right?
No, sir, we haven't.
No, sir, introduce to us the scattering parameter.
Okay. So let me try to explain you, because moving whatever I will show you today, scattering parameter will be very important element of it. Again, we will study it in next lecture, but for today, just for the basic idea, what are scattering parameters, or what is the basic application of scattering parameter. So what happens is, any given component, whether it is a passive component or an active component, that component is a 2 port or a 3 port, it can be 4 port, it can be different port. You can assign different port to a given component. So for example, resistor, right? So a resistor or a capacitor, as shown here, is a 2 port network. So 1 port, 2 port, right? Now if this is 1 port, this is 2 port. So the basic idea of S parameter is, if I excite this port, right, which means that if I have a wave which is coming here, and I am exciting this port with a wave, a part of that wave will be transmitted, which will be transferred to the load. The other part of the wave will be reflected back to the load, and so whatever transmission happens, that will give me that, whether this thing, for example, this was a resistor. So if I go from here to here, which means I go from 1 port to 2 port, what I want my signal to, depending on application, ideally I want my gain, that will define my gain. I want my signal to be transferred from 1 port to another. But as we discussed earlier, due to non-idealities, which means that because my ports are not matched, what happens is that wave reflects back. So the wave reflects back is given by the reflection coefficient at this port, or is given by S11. So you technically don't want S11 to be, or you don't want this port to have maximum reflections. You want everything to go in forward direction. So if you don't want, which means that this S11 you want it to be ideally 0. Okay, so I will now show you, for example, let's, so these are different elements and components. Then there is something called as S parameter. So this S parameter block, what it does, this is called simulator. Okay, so basically what it will do, it will excite my ports. And to have any S parameter simulation, step one is you need 2 ports, which means port 1 and port 2. I told you guys earlier, that ports are usually standardized with 50 ohm characteristic impedance, right? So you see here have port 1 and port 2, and then I'm connecting a resistor in between these ports. So say I connect one here, second here. Now what S parameter does, this simulator, what it will do, it will excite this port, which means it will try to send a wave from resistor, and it will see if these impedances are matched, there will be no reflection, and it will try to measure what is the reflection coming back, what signal going in this direction, and then what is the reflection happening at this port. So for a given 2-port network, you can define S11, right? There will be S11, there will be S21, then there will be S12, and then there will be S21. So there will be like 4 different things. That signal transmission going from 1 to 2 port, the signal reflecting back at port 1, signal reflecting at port 2, and the signal which might be reflecting and coming back from port 2 to port 1. Okay, so you try to measure S parameter over frequency. So for example, I can have it at a single frequency or frequency. So for example, say I am sweeping my frequency from 1 gigahertz to 10 gigahertz with a step size of 1 gigahertz, which means I have 10 points. So let's try to see, can somebody tell me what do you expect out of this? Like say if I run an S parameter, which means, so if I'm running S parameter, it means you are converting this into an excitation port. A signal will be going through this, and once the signal goes through this, there will be effect of whatever circuit you have, and then that will be transmitted to the port 2. So in this case, please see carefully, this port is matched to this port, and this port is matched to this port. So let's run. For running, I click this button called simulate. So when I simulate, I get my data window. So basically this is for plotting. I can plot pretty much anything I want here. So let's try to plot 4 things. First, what is happening at port 1? So port 1 is given by S11. Okay. Now you can plot it in magnitude. You can plot it in real part of it, imaginary part of it, and dB scale. So let me first plot it in magnitude. So you see some value here, 0.3 for example, right? So usually when we are talking about all these parameters, we always use dB scale because that's the standard which has been set, and that gives us measure of what sort of reflection I am having. So you see, resistor doesn't have a frequency response, right? Because it's a passive component. It's an ideal resistor. Across my bandwidth, nothing changes, right? From 1, it's always flat. Similarly, if I try to plot S21 in the dB scale, you see it says it's minus 3.5 dB, but again it's flat. Then I can also plot my S12. Let me plot this, and then I will explain you. And then we will plot. So if you see carefully, your S11 and S22 are same, and S21 and S12 are same. The reason for that is it's a resistor. It's like it's a symmetrical device. So whatever the response is from this will be the same from 2 to 1 port. So now let's introduce some frequency dependence, which means let me bring capacitor into the picture. Okay. So say I take this resistor whatever it is, and with that I put like a cap, which say put like 20 picofarad. Okay, so now this is dependent on frequency, right? So with frequency, the network response of this will change. So let me run it now. So now you see it's no more flat, first of all, because of what the because of the capacitor. We introduce the capacitor, and capacitor will have a reactance, which means xc is equal to 1 over 2 pi fc. So technically the response of this network, you can find this is a parallel, so it will be 1 over r plus 1 over xc, and xc is given by 1 over 2 pi fc. So now depending on that, you will have different response. Oh. So will have different response, which is shown here. So you know what it is showing? It is showing S11, again S21 in this case, and S12 in this case are same, and S22 and your S11 are same. Now let me show you something. Now when we have this R and C, we don't know what is the equivalent impedance of this network, right? Like what is the equivalent impedance of this network? If I try to tell you that, you can quickly find it out for R plus 1 over xc. So if you solve for that, it will be 1 over 50 plus 1 over xc is 1 over 2 pi fc. So some impedance it will be there. Now the beauty of this thing is I can actually check that impedance here. So to check that impedance here, I can plot S11, what is my and what is my imaginary part. Either I can do this, or if best case possible is I just plot it on Smith chart, whatever my impedance is. See, let me increase the thickness, and let me put a marker here to show you guys what is happening here. So you see it is showing from my frequency, like say from 2 gigahertz up to 10 gigahertz or 1 to 10 gigahertz, my impedance is varying like this, which means I am close to 50 ohms. And if I want, if I want, I can basically change this impedance. So let's change the port impedance. So let me go back and make this impedance as 100 ohms, and let's keep this impedance at 50 ohms. So now again, if I try to plot it, I will see my impedance has actually shifted to 25 ohms, and it where is S22, and it impacts my S11, S21, S12 directly. It will change all these parameters. Okay, so let me put S22 again, TB. Okay, so what it is telling me, that looking from this direction, right? Looking from this direction, you guys should ask this question, right? What will be the impedance of this network looking in this direction? So to calculate that, I can quickly calculate what will be my Z in of this network will be. So whatever you do manually, whatever you do using maths theoretically, everything can be predicted using this. So for example, what will be the Z in? I am defining it here. Let me try to simulate it, and let me try to plot Z in. So you see, it is telling me that my impedance is 50 minus j this, 50 minus j this, 50 minus. So this is my equivalent impedance of that network, which I have put here. So now if I change this value to say 25, so again, depending on calculation, my impedance will change, and my impedance will be 50, whatever it is, whatever my Z in impedance is. So looking at this port, I can calculate what my impedance is, and I can do whatever I want. So you can basically, the point here is you can make this network anything you want. You can put inductor here, you can put whatever component you want, and you can have a combination of it. That's just the idea of how you simulate these things. Now, before we move further, what I would like to explain you here is that let's, because our goal here is what? Our goal here is to understand transmission lines. That's what I wanted to focus on. So transmission line is a very interesting thing because it's heavily used for matching. So let's start with a very basic ideal transmission line. So let me pull up a transmission line. Okay, so I told you last time two things. A transmission line will have Z is what? Characteristic, and then it will have electrical length, which is equal to what will be the length of this line. Like, so this transmission line is an ideal line, so this electrical length is in degrees. So when we will study Smith chart moving in next classes, you will understand significance of this. So electrical line is usually given by beta L, which means 2 pi by lambda into length, right? So if I tell you that back here where we saw the transformer thing, here, this one, where is the transformer? This one. Okay, so we were calculating impedance of the line, and we said when this the length of this line is pi by 2, which means 90 degrees, and it becomes lambda by 4 transformer. So pi by 2 is how much? 90 degrees. So say we are taking 90-degree line with a characteristic impedance of 50 ohms. Okay, so if I want, I can figure out, I can use this as a transformer, which means I can transform one impedance into another impedance. So like for example, in this, right, you have Z load, so you have some impedance, and then what you are doing, you are putting this lambda by 4 transformer and you are trying to calculate Z in. So let's do that. So I will go back and I will basically put, say I have 100 here, okay, and I have 50 ohm characteristic lines with an electrical length of 90 degrees, and now I want to calculate what will be my impedance looking from port 1. So it's at 1 gigahertz, so I will make it single point and I will run it. So basically what it is showing me, that at 1 gigahertz the input impedance is 25 ohms, correct? So let's try to understand why it is 25 ohms. Can someone explain me quickly why it is 25 ohms? Any idea? Any guesses? So what I am doing here is I'm treating this with 100 ohms, okay, and I am using a lambda by 4 transformer. So let's get back here. So ZL, my ZL is 100 ohms, and I am using a lambda by 4 transformer, right? Lambda by 4 transformer is equal to 90 degrees. So electrical is defined by beta times L. So if my beta is 2 pi by lambda and my electrical length is lambda by 4, so beta times L will be how much? Pi by 2, which is 90 degrees. So if Z in, the Z in is given by Z naught square over L. So how much is Z naught in our case? 50 ohms. So 50 in times 50 divided by ZL, and ZL is how much? 100 ohms. So that becomes 2500 over 100. So Z in becomes 25 ohms, and that's why you are seeing here 25 ohms. Is that clear? Did you get what happened just now? Hello?
Yes, sir.
So this is the power of transformer. So if I change this impedance to say 200 ohms, right? So then similarly what will happen? My impedance looking into this direction will change, and impedance becomes 12.5 ohms. So I can change pretty much any impedance to whatever I want by changing the changing the basically by using this transformer. So I can transfer 200 ohms to 12.5 ohms by using this transformer. Now the question is, vice versa is also true, which means say I know my Z in, I know my ZL, I can also play with my Z naught to match those lines, which means that say my impedance here was fixed. It was say 100 ohms. Okay. And I want to match this impedance, or let me say 50 ohms, and I want to match this 50 ohms to 100 ohms. Okay. So if I run now, so my Z in is 25 ohms, right? Input impedance is 25 ohms. But now what I'm saying is that we want to match so this is transforming impedance from 25 to 100. So basically it is making your impedance, the transformer is changing your impedance from 25 to 100 ohms. But what you can do here, you can also play with the characteristic impedance of the line, which means I can change the value of this 50 ohm lines. Right now, this is matched to 50 ohms, right? So let's see what happens when I change characteristic impedance of this line. Watch carefully. You will see that impedance moves as a function characteristic impedance. Because if you go back again, going back out to our formula, this lambda by 4 transformer is function of Z naught. So if I fix my ZL, if I fix my Z naught, and if I fix my ZL and I vary my Z naught, my input impedance will change. So this is what I'm showing here. As I change my Z naught of the line, my impedance varies. So technically say I want 50 ohms. So I update it. So if I use a characteristic impedance of 75 ohm lines, I can change my 50 ohm to 100 ohms. So in a given line, what are the factors you can play with? You can play with the characteristic impedance and the length of the line. Now let's see what this length change does. Right now it's 90 degrees. So if it is 90 degrees in this formula, you have forced beta to beta d, and you have reduced the equivalent of this equation into Z naught square over ZL. Okay, so it becomes easier. But what if it is non-90, right? What if it is non-90? So if it is non-90, then what happens is, so let's see here. I will try to change now length. Let me take it back to 50 ohms just to make sure we stay, and then change the value of. Okay. So again, I am using now a line with characteristic impedance of 50 ohm, and I am trying to change the length. So now see what happens when I change length. Now, question is, can someone explain me what is happening here? So say if I go to 0, which is maximum, and I go to 180, so from 0 to 180, I move on a constant VSWR circle. Who asked me the question about VSWR circle last time? I want to ask him that question now. Can someone explain happening when I'm trying to change the length of the line, keeping the impedance constant? So if it is 90, it is acting as a transformer. But now when I change electrical length, so electrical length in this formula is nothing but beta times D. This beta D is your electrical length. Okay. So I am trying to vary this length. And when I try to, you understand this thing, right? This is real only because when we put pi by 2, this goes away. But if this tan beta D is something else, like say tan 30, then this is an imaginary impedance, right? So if you try to vary beta D from 0 degrees to 180 degrees, you will see that your input impedance will basically change, and it will change both into positive, like reactive space, which means inductive, as well as capacitive region. So you see here what is happening here. My impedance is varying, and it varies on a constant circle. do you feel that it's like drawing a circle centered around 50 ohms? Like
Yes, sir.
what it is, right? So let
Yes,
me let me show you here. This might be. So what is happening here again? I want you to understand this concept very clearly, because this is something many people don't understand. So let me put again here. First of all, this is a Smith chart. Do you guys ever heard of Smith chart or never?
yes,
Okay, good. So on a Smith chart, so say my length of the line was 0. Okay. If it is was 0 degrees, my impedance seen is 100 ohms. Because why it is 100 ohms? If you go back here, this length is 0. It means you are seeing what this port is. Correct? Now, when I start changing the length, so say let me go to 0, so 180 by 4, say 45. Okay, so for 45, what will happen when it is tan 45? It is given by what? It is given by 1. Tan 45 is 1. So Z naught, how much is Z naught? 50 ohms. So 50 ZL is 100 ohms. So 100 plus J50, right, over 50 plus J100 times 50 ohms. This Z naught is 50 ohms. So if you calculate that, right, it is like R plus JX or A plus JB over C plus JD. You can rationalize it. And if you will try to find it, you will find you will get this impedance. And then you go to 90 degrees, then it becomes transformer, which means in this equation, this beta D is 90 degrees, and this expression reduces to this expression. Z naught square over Z naught is 50. So 50 into 50 divided by ZL, which is 100, 100 over 100, which becomes 25 ohms. So you see now impedance has become real. Then if I go another 45, which is 135, I will be 40 plus J30. So again, going back here, 1045 will be how much? Minus 1. So ZL minus Z naught, which ZL is again how much? 100 minus J50 over minus, sorry, 50 minus J100. If you solve it, you will find this value, and that is positive again, because you will have to rationalize it. So what I'm trying to say is, and then again you go to 180, you are back to where you started, which is 100 ohms. So 0 and 180 is the same thing. So the transmission line length, if it is 0 degree and it's 180 degree, is the same thing. 45 and 145 are opposite, one in capacitive region, one in inductive region. But good point is what you will try to understand. Let me sweep it again. Oops, why the heck is, just 1 second. Okay, so well, it's not leaving that. But what I'm trying to say here is it is moving on a constant radius circle. If you clearly try to see, it's going from 25. So this is 25. Then go up. It cross 50 here, and then it goes to 100. So it is moving on a radius which is equal to kind of 25 ohms, or is the center around 50 ohms. Okay. So that's the nature of a transmission line. A transmission line move a given impedance on a constant VSWR circle. This is known as a constant VSWR circle. So I told you last time, right? If there is something called as VSWR 1:2, what it means? It means you are going from 50 ohms to 100 ohms. Now in this case, you are going from 25 ohms to 100 ohms. So how much is the VSWR? If you go from 25 to 100, how much is VSWR? Exactly. Got it. Okay. I'm actually trying to explain it in a very simple manner, because I feel, and I have already asked for, I'm trying to get this software to you guys. We can do a lot of cool things, but problem is I asked someone to help me to write proposal, but you guys are lazy. Nobody back to me saying that, I can help you. So anyways, I need time to write it so that I can get licenses for you guys. So let me go back. Okay. So now you understood this thing, right? I want you maybe this can be a good assignment, right? I want you to plot Zn as a function of electrical length varying from 0 to 180 degrees. I want you to plot it on, because you will have R plus, but for that you need to understand how Smith chart plotting works. Did you guys plotted Smith chart impedances in Smith chart last time? No? Like in your last course?
No, sir.
I will have to teach you that. Okay. Okay. Now, can someone explain me how Z and E are related? So this is ideal line. Like in real world, this doesn't mean anything, right? I mean, basically this Z translates to width and E translates to length of the line. So Z higher the impedance, thinner will be the line, and thinner the lower the impedance, thicker will be the line. So what happens is, say for example, right? I'm just putting random lines here. I'm not, because there is much more to it. I will explain you how to match two impedance and all that, but this is just a very introductory part I'm saying. Say I change this to 25 and change this to 40. And so we are taking three lines here. Okay. And I change this to 75. And this length, I change it to 25. So 25, 90, 40. Three impedance, 75, 50, 25. Now what happens? Say I understood what my circuit is. Okay. Now, once I know my circuit, I will go to a manufacturer and I will tell him, you know what? I have my circuit. I know what transmission lines I have to use. Tell me how you can fabricate it. So last time I explained you, in a microstrip line, there is a copper, there is and then there is a substrate, and then there is the ground. Okay. So one thing, for a line to operate or line to function, what matters most is the specification of the substrate. So what I want to do here is this. I will go and try to show you that how you convert these ideal lines into the real looking lines. And for that, I need to find out where is, okay, line cal, right? Line cal, where is line cal? Tools, line cal, okay. Shut up. Okay, so see, so what you do here is you fix your frequency. Say I am designing something at 1 gigahertz. So this is what a transmission line looks like, this is a line, which means that there is this copper and then there is this ground. It has a width and it has a length. So this is the width, this is the length. Okay. Now this part, white part, is the substrate, and this is the back metal. So this substrate specification will tell you that whatever electrical, what will be the width and what will be the length. Understand this carefully, because I will give you an exam question on this and you will have to apply brains. It won't be deriving anything, it will be very analytical question. So follow what I'm trying to explain you here. So again, repeating again, this is a transmission line. This is my top metal layer. This top metal has a length and a width, and I printed straight. This is my substrate. So as you know, substrate has dielectric. It will have a dielectric height or thickness or whatever you call it. And then it will have two things, permeability and permittivity, right? And then we read about tan d, or the tangent, like loss tangent. Loss tangent means when wave is traveling through this dielectric, how much loss it will bear as a function of distance. And then in the back, this is the ground plate, because you can't have a substrate hanging in the air, so this will be your bottom ground plate. So now say I have this substrate which has these specifications, say ER. Let me to explain you, let me a substrate. Please stop me if you are not following anything. Stop me, because otherwise what will happen now, you won't learn much. So in a substrate there are many things. So first thing is H, or it's called substrate thickness. Okay, which means how much thick this substrate is here. Okay, then there is something called as ER, which you guys know, which is relative dielectric constant. So again, going back, it is the dielectric constant of the substrate. Then you have relative permeability, which is again a substrate property. Then of course there is a conductor. You know what you will be using here, and it will have its conductivity. And then cover height. This is just, how much the height of if you are placing a cover. And then there will be something called as tan d. Tan d is the dielectric loss tangent. So it's zero right now, which is assuming there is no loss in this. So say I have this frequency. So now what I will do, I will try to convert electrical length, and I will try to convert my characteristic impedance into the real values of length and width. So say for example, first line, my impedance is how much? 75. My electric is 25 ohms. Oh, so sorry, 25 degrees. So again, electrical length is beta times d. Now if your d is lambda by 4, electrical length is 90 degrees. If electrical length is 90 degrees, you are lambda by 4 transformer. Again, electrical length is 25 degrees, is less than your lambda by 4 transformer line. If it is, actually this I should change to 120 actually, because then that makes more sense. Okay, so now let's put 75 and 25. So depending on the properties of the dielectric, there is actually a formula where you can calculate width and length depending on the properties of the substrate. So what happened to this guy? Why is it blank? Okay, so you see here it shows your width is 3.5 mils and length is 336 mils. So I want to see if I can show you a formula of this, how it is getting calculated. But this formula I will put it in slides, because yeah, you see here it is. It doesn't give formula, but it just explains what all these things are. But this is the cover, this is your conductor, then this is ground plane, and then this is your ER, permeability, tan d, and the thickness of this substrate. This is what it is. So now let's see. It says it has a width of 3.5 and a length of 336 mils. So let me go back and put an actual line, which is which will be basically a model of an actual line which has width and the length. So you see, I'm converting this length into this substrate width, which was 3.5, as I got from my calculator, and then length is 336. So this will be 336. Now 50 and 90. So tell me one thing, for 50 ohms Z, the width will be higher or lower than this line? So if you, I will share that formula, but the correlation is width is usually inversely proportional to the characteristic impedance. So let's see if that is true. So if width is 50 ohms, okay, and your electrical length is 90 degrees, your width is 9.7 mils. So this will be 0.7 mils, and your length will be 1169. So your width has increased as your impedance have decreased. So now I again go, I will put my Z as 25 ohms and I will change my electrical length to 120 degrees. What will happen? My width increases further. Width is 31 mils and my length 114. How much is it? 1164. 1164. Okay, so if you were given, so these are the ideal lines which were in, these lines are what it was, this this line. Okay, now what I'm showing you with substrate is the real line. It's not yet in the slides, I will put it, but it's converting the ideal line into practical usable line. Now we have this. Now the question comes, what happens after this? Okay, you decided what will be the length, what will be the width, and all these things. So after that, idea is that how do you see this practically? Okay, so for that, let me show you what happens after this. So is it clear so far, or are there any confusions? Any confusion so far? Any questions, comments, suggestions? Tarun, what do you think?
Yes, sir.
Are you following?
Yes, sir.
He's listening to some songs. So, okay. So now what happens is, I have this substrate. I know that these are my length and width variation of the line. What I will do, I will try to create a layout just to show you how it looks like. Okay.
Sir,
Yes.
sir, in the second part, are you creating transmission line? This
Exactly.
TL4, TL5, TL6.
So they are the transmission lines, but this is an ideal model. This is the microstrip line model, which means a microstrip line, as I explained you, is what it has a width over a substrate. So depending on what substrate we choose, we will have the length and the width of the line. So what I did with that calculator, I converted all these ideal
So
characteristics.
we are also familiar with microstrip line,
Yeah, exactly.
but
So this,
not in the form of this LN4, LN5, or something.
what is LN4? Sorry.
Sir, this Ayurona.
Huh?
So this MLIN or MLIN, something kind.
This is just the name. This is just the name. It's nothing. It's just showing this is line 4, this is line 5, this is line 6. And ML in means microstrip line, microstrip line, microstrip line.
Okay, sir.
And then we have a substrate. Depending on the substrate, you will know what is the width. So I don't know how many of you have made any PCBs, but there is something called as FR4, much used for a lot of microcontrollers, lot of robotics. People use PCBs on FR4 substrate. So similarly, there are many substrates in the market. So before you try to design a PCB, you have to go to a vendor and ask him, hey, what substrate you have? And depending on that substrate, you will design this and okay, ideally I want this. So for this network, these will be the length and the width, and that will be dependent on the substrate. So let's go back. So you see, this is my line now. It's kind of interesting because it's very thin. Again, it will depend on substrate. So sometimes what will happen, you might lead to layout, and then you will realize what if you go to fabrication, they will say you cannot fabricate a line less, for example. So this width is 3 mils. So this might not be you might not be able to fabricate it. So you will have to go back and rechange your design. but I'm just giving an example here. So let's see. So I explained earlier, this line had the highest impedance. Okay, so this has 75 ohms, then 50, then 25. So its width is minimum, then width increases, and then width is the maximum width. So let's try to see how it looks like, you know, this transmission line. Let's see how it looks like. So for defining that, first you need to define substrate. So this is my substrate. This substrate has a thickness called 10, which is 10 mils. It has a dielectric, which is 9.6. And on top of this, I have metal layer. So I'm using a conductor metal, Con or Con2, anyone I can use. And then above that is air. And this back thing is the perfect conductor, which is the back of my PCB. So let's try to see it in 3D, because then you will get more feel of it, you know. So this is your transmission line. So you see this is the conductor. Then there is this substrate, and in the bottom is your back metal. So basically, if people, you might have seen those PCBs where, you know, you have a connector here, and then you have these lines coming in, and then you use this kind of a thing for matching, you know. So this is how a transmission line design is done. Now, depending on the, I will explain you about how now you EM simulate it. We will go to that part. But that, you know, if you have access to design, so for example, its length is too big, right? So I can do pretty much anything. I can change this, and I can make it, I can curve it. If I want, I can make it, you know, curvy, so that I can reduce its total length. But everything you do, you will have to make sure that you, for example, let's take this case, right? So this is, I can use the, so let me fix the width. So width of this line is how much? Let me measure it. 30, right? So what I can do, I go from here, I change this to 30. I will ask a question here. So say I start with this, I want to keep the, so total length of this line was how much? It was 1164. Okay. So I start from here. So 1164. So say 200, say first I go 300, then I go another, say 500, so 800, then I go another 500 or whatever, and then I go here, and then so what I can do here is I can reduce the total length of this line by curving it down. So is this line same as this line? That's my question. Can I replace this line with this line? If given the fact that the total length from here to here and the total length from here to here is same, can I substitute them or not? What do you guys think?
सर कर सकते हैं, बट विड्थ चेंज नहीं होनी चाहिए.
I'm not changing the width, but can I just draw a line like this or not? थोड़ा सोचो, अगर हम if we are taking a line and just curving it around, what will happen practically? I want you to think, you know, like, think more, like what exactly is happening in the line. So let me again generate 3D.
Sir,
and
I
then,
think it's that way, because when I don't think we can replace it that way, because of this bending the curves, maybe the waves which are going gets reflected or some sort.
Very good point. Very good point. You got it. So what Mansa is saying, she's saying that, you know, if we bend it, so what is happening? If you bend it, there is wave or there is signal flowing here. Now what can happen because of the bend? In this signal is just flowing like this. Now in this of the band, there will be mutual interaction, EM interaction between this part and this band. So now to explain you this, that why and how, what we can do, we can bend it. Bending is not a problem. But what we have to make sure is, if this is my line and if I bend it, their parameters should not change across frequency. So technically I will measure S parameter of this, I will bend it and try to simulate it and measure S parameter of this, and I will try to manipulate my bending and my total length in such a way that these two S parameters, we can always bend it, that's not a problem, but their S parameters should remain same. Now before we go further, I would like to explain you how. So again, going back, let's go to fundamentals again. We understand theory, we understood this last time, and when we were discussing this, there were two things which I was mentioning. There can be a lossless line where alpha attenuation constant is 0, but then there is a generic equation where you have gamma. This gamma is alpha plus j beta. If alpha is 0, it means there is no attenuation. But in practical cases, that's not true. In practical cases, the real equation is this all the time, because you will have an alpha, you will have a beta, and they will also change with respect to. It's much more complicated. I mean, you can't use these equations and just just use them for designs. You have to understand physics behind the electromagnetics interactions. So I will try to explain you that now. Okay. So let's just take this example again, right? So let's say I have this line. Now I don't know, right? I had some S parameters which I got here. Say I can calculate, for example, let's see here, right? I put another port 3 and then I put port 4. Okay, so let's try to simulate this first. I'm sweeping it from 1 to 10, let's say not 10 gig, 1 to 4 gig, and step size of 1. Okay. Okay, so see this is S11, S21, S12, and S22. I will also place S33. Technically, as I was explaining earlier, this and this is same, but this is real, right? This has the substrate effect into it. Okay, so what do you guys think? When I will put S11 and S33, will they be same or not? Any guesses? Or S21 and S43, will they be same or not? What do you guys think? Answer me.
No, sir, there might be some difference.
Why?
Sir, because we haven't done the equaling part. The scattering parameters are not the same. That's why.
No, that's what I'm asking. Why they are not same? In front of you, I converted this into this. It has a width, it has a length. So technically, this line is an equivalent of this line. So my question is, why you are saying they won't be same? So I'm asking, they won't be same. Your answer is right, but why?
So because if there are irregularities in circuit line,
this is just, you had a single line, you're converting it into the equivalent. There's no irregularity, it's just straight line. We are not even bending anything. Okay, so let me explain you guys didn't catch one thing. This model was frequency dependent. Okay, when I converted this to this, I converted it using at a single frequency, which means I selected a frequency here which was ठीक है. तो अब मुझे कुछ ज्योमेट्री तो मिल गई. I know what are length and widths, but these length and widths are equal to these length and widths only at 1 gigahertz. But across my frequency, it will vary. So now let me try to put S33 here. Okay. S43. Okay. S12 का इक्वलेंट क्या होगा? S34. And then S22 का equivalent क्या होगा? S44. So all of them are different because two reasons. The red one is the ideal case. The blue one is the case with substrate affect into the play. So you have theoretically done calculated how much will be the substrate losses and how much due to substrate losses, how will this change? So technically what I should have done, I should have tuned my values of width and length right here to make sure they match closely to each other. You getting my point, right? Because what I want, if my initial design was design 1, and when I take real substrate effect into the picture, my design 2 changes, then technically I should have tuned my length and width and have tried to make them as close as possible. But they are different. Now, that's okay. But this still doesn't consider any electromagnetic effect. This doesn't consider when I have a line like this, what happens on this corners. You know, there will be, because what is this? You can see, you are seeing it as a transmission line, but this is RC, RCL, RRL, C, G through substrate, and it's distributed all over this line length. So that substrate model is not considering what will be the interaction between this corner and this corner, this big jump from here to here. There is a big discontinuity. There will be a different electromagnetic response of it. So let's try to understand what happens then. So what I will do now as the step 3, I will try to EM simulate this, which means I will put ports. So say I have a port 1. So I put my, okay, it doesn't like to snap. Okay, so I will put a port here and I will put a port on this side. Okay. So these are 2 ports. So what I am doing the same thing which I was doing there, but I want to excite them and I want to measure what will be the S parameter of this structure, but in an EM simulated environment. So I will try to explain you what I'm trying to do here. So I have a substrate. I am taking all those substrate effects, you know, the effect of dielectric, effect of permittivity, permeability, effect of air over the surface, effect of loss. And I have these 2 ports and I say, let's do the same thing. Let's go from 1 gig to 4 gig, like how we did it in ideal simulation. Now, there is interesting concept here. You know, when I was in second year of my undergrad, I read a lot about it. So what happens is when you have a structure and you are trying to EM simulate it, these simulators are usually based on method of moments, which means what you are doing, you are dividing this long structure into small segments. For each segment, you are calculating the electric and magnetic field effect and integrating that all effect over area. तुम्हें याद है in 11th and 12th we used to do those problems. एक sphere है and then at a distance we are putting something else. What will be the electric field due to this on this object, on that object to this object? क्या होगा? There used to be those questions, right? Similarly here now, what is happening? We are trying to quantify for electric and magnetic effects. So what I will do, I will try to simulate it. So it might take little time, maybe 2 minutes or so. But let's see. Okay, that was fast because number of points are less. Okay, so let me do one more thing. Okay, so it finished, right? So you see, when it's simulated, you see how it is dividing the entire structure into small elements, right? Let me increase more resolution. Technically, higher the resolution, better it is, but after certain number per length, it doesn't impact. So let's see. You see, now it has decreased it further. So it divides it into small elements, and for each element it computes the effect of electric and magnetic fields over this surface. Oh, give me 1 second, my laptop battery is dying. Okay, so let's go back. So this is my, okay, no. Okay, so it has EM simulated, right? Let's see how the EM simulation effect looks like. Okay, so you see port. So port is between the ground and the top metal layer. And then similarly, here is my port 1. These are 2 ports. And I am just simulating the effect of the fields. Okay, I want to check one thing, whether, let me close this, why is it not? Okay, model, okay, auto create now, yes. So I will go back to my schematic where everything I have, and I am trying to create an equivalent model of EM simulated model now. So just bear with me for 1 second. This is so small, so better I just, okay. So whatever we were EM simulating, I converted it to kind of a data set. So all these 3 lines, I am representing it now through whatever EM simulation I did, and I'm placing it here. So this cell represent what was there, what we created in layout and simulated. Now let me also try to compute S parameter of this so that we can compare what happened in each case. So everyone is following me. This was ideal. Then we took substrate effect. They're doing EM effect. Okay. Okay, it doesn't like that. Okay. I will have to change it now. Where is that? Options. Okay, it will work now. So let's go back again. As so let's plot everything. First plot S11 for ideal case, S33 for microstrip case equivalent, and then what is this as 55. You see S33 and S55 are close enough. Okay, now let me put S21, S43, and 3, 4, 5, 6, S65. You see, they are close enough. So what has happened here is that the microstrip model what we had was close to what my EM simulation is giving, but my ideal case is very far from it, because technically when we converted ideal to microstrip, we should have tuned our microstrips to match ideal case. But you see how close they are now. The EMs, so this gives me guarantee that if I will try to fabricate it in the real scenario environment, this will work. Now what we were saying, right? Now let's, if I just try to use width and I try to have the same length, but I try to bend it, right? So say it's 1150 total length. So we start from here, 300. Say I go 300 and then I go another 400. So this is 700. And say I go 545, this much. So this is the total length. Okay. So technically this, so did you guys follow what I did? This total length was 1164. I came 300 here. Then I came 125 here. So this is 425. Then I came another 100. So this is 525. So it's not actually, this is just half. I should have, sorry, my mistake. And so say this is 400 length. And this is 160. So 400 and 160, 560. Then I go another 200. 560 and 200, 760. Then I go another 165. So this is around 800. Then I go like this. So this is approximately the same line I was drawing as, which is equivalent of this. But what I want to show you is that when you do EM, right? When you will do EM of this, let me just make a random structure. Okay, so now I will try to run EM for this one. So EM clear momentum. So we have this kind of a snake. Now I reduce it, but I have this kind of a model. So you will see that because of the EM effect, now this gets more severe. So your results will be very off in this case. So I just converted that and made it into meander or like a snake kind of a thing. Similarly, I simulate this. So it first creates mesh. So it is creating mesh here in the background, small, and then calculate electric and magnetic field effect for each square and then integrate it over the complete area. That's how it works. Design PCBs, that's what you have to do actually. So let me now run it again and let's see what happened. You see now it has slightly shifted off. Actually not slightly shifted off, the S21. So it's funny, S21 is my ideal case, right? So S21 was my ideal case, then my microstrip case is S41. But now you see S65 is actually coming to close to ideal case. Last time it was actually coming close to my S43. You remember? These two were not same. In the previous case, when it was not like the snake kind of a structure, but it was a straight line, it was coming close to S43, but now it is coming close to S6. So it means my S parameter has changed drastically. But by chance, it is coming close to what I actually desired for. So when you try to bend these lines, you have to simulate every structure and compare what you wanted with it. So depending on that, you can either increase the length, decrease the length, or do whatever you want for basically trying to understand the effect of it. Are you guys following? Any questions so far? Any doubts, any questions, any comments before I go further to show you some quickly more stuff and then.
Sir. Sir.
Yeah.
Hello.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
how is this software different from ANSYS software? So we use that software last semester.
ANSYS means the HFSS. Hello. So
yes,
you would have used ANSYS software. You would have used ANSYS software for designing passives, which means designing antenna or something. Yeah. So in ANSYS, you cannot do what I am doing here. ANSYS is not a simulator. ANSYS simulate, you can do S parameters, but what you cannot do there, from EM perspective, it's same. Electromagnetic simulation is the same. But when it comes to circuit level, system level implementation, that cannot be done in ANSYS. Like for example, transistor models. Eventually, when we will go up to transistors, you can simulate transistors here, but you cannot simulate transistors in ANSYS. So ANSYS is mostly simulation. Like what we are doing now, ANSYS is good for it. But ANSYS is not good for when we are trying to do active simulation. So that's the major difference.
Okay, sir.
Yeah. So, I mean, another example is, when we try to match. So like we were seeing, say we have a width, and let me say 5. So always remember one thing, when you are trying to do impedance matching, you want impedance to, so for example, this width is 50 and you are converting this 50 mil width to small width of 5. Okay, so one way is this. Another way is you can have this kind of a structure, and you can have 50 and then you use another one and try to convert it to 5. Okay, so what do you guys think, which will be better, A or B?
A.
Say they have same. Why will be A better?
Sir, we do impedance matching like root Z1 to Z2. We did last semester.
Okay, so basically why A will be better, the reason for that is, you see, this is a gradual transition of impedance. At each step, say this impedance, this is 50 ohms, for example, okay, and it has some width, and you are going to a lower, to a higher impedance, because higher impedance has less width. So at each point, you have a gradual transition of impedance, and you are matching from a higher impedance to like from a given impedance to a higher impedance. So this is gradually happening at each place. Okay, there is no big discontinuity here. Here you had some impedance and then suddenly you try to transform it to a smaller impedance. So you have a big discontinuity or step. So from EM simulation perspective, this is not very desired. So when you want to really simulate it, you have to make that you do a gradual transition of impedance using tapers. So tapers are heavily used in RF, and one of the reasons, and a practical case maybe I can show you here in this antenna, right, in this figure. Let me try to see if we can see in Zoom. This part where it connects to the connector, I did tapering to match them. You have to taper it to make sure your impedance transition is as smooth as possible. And when you do that, your impedance matching is perfect and you get the best, because you have the best match, you get the good good basically flow to the load, because now reflections will be minimized. So doing all this, whatever I have since past 1.5 hours, the idea again is simple, that you want to design something which can minimize your reflections. Once your reflection gets minimized, that gives you more which gets transferred in the forward direction, and minimum power gets transferred in the in the direction back to the source. So this is like the basic idea of what can be done, and that's why I tried to explain you what is the role of a transformer. So now even if you want to do a transformer design, for example, say just a simple lambda by 4 transformer, 90 degrees length, as you see, 50 ohm and 90 degree is 9.7 mils and 1169 for this substrate. So that transformer will be nothing but, you can just, it will be just a small line, whatever width is mentioned, and that will guarantee you that the impedance 100 ohms gets transformed into whatever your impedance is. But so if I ask you, design a lambda by 4 transformer to convert 100 ohms to 25 ohms. So you know, if we use this 50 ohms, we can transfer pretty much 100 ohms to 25 ohms. So how we will do that? Like, how will the transformer look like? Can somebody tell me the steps? Say this is 100 ohms and this is 25 ohms. So this 50 90 should convert my 100 to 25, right? So let's just confirm it once. So I will put it as Z in 1, and this port will change to 7 number. So I will just change this 7. So let's see. Z in 1 is how much? Oops, it's not here. Okay. Okay, frequency has to be only 1 gig because it won't work at others. Okay. So yeah, so this is converting 100. Actually, yeah, this is wrong, because that has to be 50 ohms if I want to. But anyways, the point here is that this if I use this Z0 of 50, so 50 over 50 divided by ZL, which is 100. So this will convert, exactly, this will convert 100 ohms. So this should be 50 ohms here to check how much is the Zin. So Zin will be 25 ohms. So I am transferring 100 ohms to 25 ohms at this port. So now we know this 50 and 90, what is the equivalent length at the width of this. And if you see this is 9.7 and 11, we calculated this earlier. Now the point is, when you are trying to do, you will have to say you had this 100 ohms and this port is 100 ohms. So you will have to make sure that this 9.7 width, which is 50 ohms, should be matched to 100 ohms width. So 100 ohms width will be very tiny actually, because we saw it for 75 ohms, it's very small. So technically what I'm trying to say here is, you will need to transition 9.7 width to the width of this 100 ohms, which means you will have to transition from 50 ohm to 100 ohm in practical design. You will have to make sure that your line actually tapers, so that it is at one end it's 100 ohms, at other end it's 50 ohms. So let me show you here how it is done. So M taper. So I can specify my width and the length of the taper. So for example, my length is the same, 1169, and say I am moving it from, I'm just taking an example to show you, these are just some random numbers. So I want 25 mils and I want to convert that 25 to 10 mils. So this 25 mils for sure is a higher width, which means it will be a lower impedance. This is a lower width, which will be a higher impedance. So what I can do, just I can basically use this taper. I guess, yeah, see, this is my taper. So this line will automatically convert and make this impedance. So I can directly connect my connector here. So you will see a lot of these things being used in PCBs. And but taper makes it a smooth transition. So you don't have to use something like you are using here. This is not something which is desired. So yeah, so I guess this is pretty much it about transmission lines. I also want to show you one more thing before I forget. Basics of transmission lines. Now, you see, we were at 1 gig, and I showed you that, say my load impedance was 100 ohms. Okay, now I use a transmission line. I told you that it moves on a constant VSWR circle. Like if you start from 45 degrees, again going back here, use your equation. What was where is that equation? Yeah, so again, if you do 1045 degrees, this is ZL plus JZ naught over Z naught plus JZL. What with 45 you end up at this impedance. Then if you keep increasing the line length, check this, I'm increasing the line length, I reach 50 ohms, I reach 25 ohms, and then I go up. So basically if I change the line length, I am covering the around 50 ohms, cover the radius of 0.5, basically, 0.5 to 1. So I can make a radius around this. So this is what it is showing, that how a transformer works. So I mean, I can change the Z naught of this, but if I change the Z naught of this, my characteristic of the line will also change. So this is just a small example, of how transmission lines are used and what is the importance of transformer, how transformer can convert from example 100 to 25 or whatever different impedances are. You can also do the same thing. Say you had this impedance and you want to match it to 25 ohms. So one way is you are using transmission line. It's straight. You do a 90-degree lines, game over. What else you can do? You can also use inductor and capacitor to do this matching. So for example, you want to reach here. Oops. Shoot. It's my screen got frozen, sorry. There is actually a Smith chart tool. You can find it on Google. Just Google it. It's called Smith 632 or Smith 64. If you download, you can play around with how I'm playing here. Shoot. I don't know what happened. Okay, anyways, I think for today my focus was just to show you all these things so that you can relate more with the lecture we read about transmission line last time. This is very simple. Next week what I want to do is I will try to now start moving towards more complex stuff, where we will start reading more about Smith chart matching. And also I want to see, if you can get access to software, that will be best, because then you can learn very lot of things. But as of now, I guess this is good. So for today, whatever we saw today, do you have any questions so far? Like any question, like about applications or about what should be done? Just ask some questions, because that helps me to understand whether you guys are even understanding or not. Because in online medium, it's very hard to see faces. So I have hardly any clue what's happening, So I can tune. Go ahead.
Hello, sir. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Sir, I mean, actually, sir, on VSWR circle, when we are drawing that, how do you interpret it? I mean,
So you are asking that when we are let me still there, or so you are asking me when I am doing a constant VSWR here, what does it mean?
yes, sir. I mean, I've been asked, sir. Actually, my mic was not working, sir. And I couldn't ask it earlier. I was speaking, but
Oh, is it okay? No problem. You are like that NUS professor. So
the permission was not granted. Actually, that was happening.
Okay, so and let me go back to. Oh wow, Mr. Siddharth Anand wants to join now. Is he? Who is Siddharth Anand? Is he a student or a professor?
The student.
I'm denying entry. What's the point? Why is he coming now? I mean, so yeah, let me go back to VSWR thing. Okay. So last time we saw this equation, right? Say again, coming back, say my gamma, right? My gamma, which means the reflections, right? Reflection is 0, my VSWR is 1. Now, I was explaining this last time. Say I am matched, my system is matched. I have a 50 ohm line, I'm matched to a 50 ohm antenna impedance. Perfect, my VSWR is equal to 1. Impedance from 50 changes to 100. Then what happens is my VSWR has changed from 50 to 100. And now because of that, basically my VSWR for that particular thing, because my gamma is what? ZL minus Z0 over ZL plus Z0. So it's like 100 minus 50 over 100 plus 50. So it becomes 50 over 150. So 1 by 3. Okay. So if you substitute 1 by 3 here, it's 1 plus 1 by 3. 1 minus 1 by 3. So it's like 4 by 3 over 2 by 3. So it's equal to VSWR of 2. Okay. So when impedance moved from 50 to 100, it became VSWR of 2. So this is just VSWR in terms of absolute impedance. Now your question is, when I have a transmission line and I am at a certain impedance, say I am centered around, I have a characteristic impedance of the line as 50 ohms, and I'm also matched to a port of 50 ohms. So what happens is I have fixed my impedance. If I have fixed my impedance, then means my width is fixed. And what I am doing is I am only changing the electrical length of the line. Electrical length of the line is nothing but it is degrees, like 0 degree, 10 degree, 20 degree, and so on. That is just telling me that my transmission line as a function of distance is giving me some electrical length. Impedance can vary as a function of distance, because we read it last time. Impedance vary as a function of distance over a transmission line. So given that, what happens, you will create different sort of impedances at different locations of your transmission line. For a given length, you will have some impedance, and then it will vary as the function of degrees. So you will have I will say a continuum of different impedances over that line. Now the point is, when you are plotting that thing in polar, right, you see that it draws as a constant VSWR circle. Actually, when we study Smith chart, I will again come to this topic, and you will understand it better, because you will understand how Smith chart functions, how the impedances are plotted over Smith chart, and when you will understand, you will understand why it is circling around that center. So leave this question to later class. You will get a clear hang of it. Don't worry about it. But today it was just important to explain you, because transmission lines play a major role in this impedance transformation. So I think you got that, and you understood that, how to go from ideal to microstrip to EM simulated lines, and what is the interaction between all this.
Okay, sir. What is the difference between simulated lines and this microstrip? Like, it's similar, I think. What is the difference between those two?
The microstrip line won't consider EM effects, which means it won't consider, for example, if there is a discontinuity, it won't take into consideration any sort of electromagnetic response. coming from the excitation, which means जो भी electric magnetic field का interaction that is not considered in the microstrip. But why you are not seeing much difference? Because your frequency is low. Higher the frequencies, for example, millimeter wave, right? You do the same simulation at high frequency, your numbers will be way off. So it is very frequency dependent, because EM response, what happens, as we read in class first, the parasitic capacitances or resistances or inductances, they become very severe at high frequencies, because capacitor become inductive, because they are way above their self-resonating frequency, as we read. So they keep changing over frequency. So that's why EM simulations are most important, because those are practically what happens in the real world. In this case, we saw it, they were close enough because the frequencies are not that high. If I just change the frequency and simulate it at high frequency, you will see that they will be different.
Okay, sir.
Any other question or doubt? Any other doubt? See, either the case is I am teaching very, very well so that you understand everything, or the case is you don't understand anything. So I don't know what's going on, right? And since this is my first time teaching you guys, so I need to, know input so that I can improvise my teaching in next class. It's not that if you tell me, hey, this thing you should do this way, I will grade you bad, That's not the point. So, any comments?
Sir, let's have a workshop quickly on this. I think we'll get it better.
I know, but man, for arranging, see, here is the process, right? I talked to him. Workshop we can't have right now, Deepak, because there is a lot to it. This is not even, this will get very complex. But I am just warming you up because I want you to stay motivated, because when it comes of drawing, the problem is being remote and having no access to CAD tools and labs makes theory hard to understand. I don't want you guys to feel scared of this subject. So that's why I am planning to match, two lectures theory, then give you some hints of practical aspects. But we have to keep doing more theory, because once you have done all the Smith chart matching, circles, gain circles, stability circles, that's where I want to do workshop. It's still very too early to do workshop. So, and again for that, licenses, we need to send a proposal. I might have to talk to your dean or your coordinator, like I think Professor Saxena, I will talk to him. I messaged, we were not able to talk. And then I will at least start having conversation with Keysight to get the licenses. So it might take another month or so, as what I'm expecting.
Okay.
Because what for example, best case scenario would have been, say today you all had this software and we could have just, you could have also played with me when I was explaining, right?
Yes, sir.
So we will do that. Don't worry. Let's keep going. Next classes will, from next week, classes will get more complicated. So if people are not attending, I don't think they will be able to even survive the assignments and exams. So you can convey this message, because I guess we have 26 or 28 students enrolled in this, and usually the attendance is half of it. So you can tell them, and if they are not interested, up to them. Okay, anything else? So in other courses, how the labs are being done? Like, is it like only theory, or are they also trying to explain you through like some tools or something?
Sir, there's only one course, that's antenna and its propagation. In that we have a lab, something, and sir is teaching us on HFSS software.
That's very good. Who is teaching that course?
Mukesh Khandelwal, sir.
So then you will be reading. Are you designing patch antenna and stuff there?
So patch antenna comes very later. We have just started. So he'll be teaching us. In the previous semester, he taught us this EMT course and taught us how to make transmission lines, waveguides on HFSS software.
Okay, okay. So you see, HFSS is slightly complex. When you have to make a transmission line in HFSS, you have to draw everything. You have to draw substrate also there. Then you
Yes.
have to specify substrate. But here in ADS, good thing is everything is customized. You just drag and drop, and you can keep. Sir, can we audit this course? What does that mean?
So the same question has been asked by other students also. Like if we can audit this.
उसका मतलब क्या
Auditing
है?
course is basically you don't choose the course. I mean, you don't get credits by the end of the day, but it's just that we can attend the course, we can do the workshops and all, but we don't write the exams or we
So
don't.
you all want to audit this then?
No, just a few people who are interested because we have 4 options, like 4 electives this time.
Okay.
And it's information theory and coding, and artificial intelligence and computer graphics. So we have to choose 2 among these 4. And if a person is interested in 2 or more, then sometimes we are given a chance to audit the course.
Got it. So I see. So if you audit this, then you just want to attend the classes. That's what the meaning is, but you don't want to write exams or assignments, right?
Exactly.
Oh yeah, I mean, up to you guys. I mean, I don't have a problem if you come and attend. If you feel it's useful for you, yeah, you can audit it. But I don't want that every one of you audit it. Then what will I do? So yeah, that's the thing. You can audit, or if some other students are there who want to attend workshop, I mean, I don't think it's a problem. It's always good to learn new things. So I don't have any issues with that.
But I think, I mean, we are not given any option to audit this course because when we audit a particular course, semester grade sheet, it is mentioned that we have audited this course this semester. But if for that to happen, we have to talk to the dean and someone else, because this is a.
Let me ask then. I will ask Professor Varun Saxena, and I will ask that students were asking. If he says no, then answer is no, basically, because I don't know the rules. So I think I will talk to Professor Varun, and I will let you know in next class about auditing. But as Mansa mentioned, I guess if it is not not given an option, then I don't think you guys will be able to do. By the way, leave all that. Did you guys see the landing of the Mars? Are you following the Mars mission? Any one of you? Or did you see the first pics? It's amazing, right? So I have been following. I have friends who works in JPL. So they basically did instrumentation of it. Do you know that? Have you seen that video of Mars helicopter? So this year, yeah, that's. Let me see if I can show you here. You see my screen? You see YouTube?
Yes, sir.
So you see what they have done this time. This is not real like what happened, but this is what their concept was. So they developed this very lightweight. Come on, man! I don't want to see you. So they developed this very lightweight helicopters, which actually, which actually flies. Once like rover land, once like the payload drops on the Mars, then this actually lands, and then it actually flies in the Martian atmosphere, and then it clicks pictures, and it basically monitors the rover, and then basically what you say launches the rover at a specific location. So this is first time happened. You see that there is their rover. Usually they never used to send these kind of helicopters because you don't know about the atmosphere, so it becomes harder to fly these kind of things on Mars. So they tried it for the first time and it worked, which is pretty amazing because the design of this entire And see, they communicate with each other, rover and the helicopter. Check. There is a there is a full video about Mars helicopter. Check that. It's very cool. Anyways, yeah, somebody was saying something. Were you saying something?
Sir, what kind of simulation we do in HFSS, like microstrip or EM simulation?
See, Manas, everything is EM simulation. HFSS is just a tool. Similarly, ADS is a tool. In HFSS or in ADS, both you will be simulating microstrip lines. You can simulate antenna, like, eventually that's what you will be doing in HFSS. But the main difference is, say I have what happens, why we use matching network, because we want to match certain impedance with my output impedance, whatever it is, 50 ohms or so. But what happens if, say for example, we try to design some power amplifier, or we try to design something with a transistor, or something which has a gain? So you can't do all that in HFSS. HFSS only simulates the passive elements or the passive components in your circuit. You can simulate in HFSS and then bring that microstrip line as an S parameter file, like an S parameter block, into ADS, and then simulate for the active, like what happens when you connect that line with, for example, a transistor. You cannot do that part in HFSS. But electromagnetic simulation wise, both HFSS, ADS, what we were seeing today is the same thing. But in HFSS, you will have to draw the substrate, you will have to draw the microstrip, 3D, everything. So it's more like a CAD drawing tool, and then you specify what type of simulation you want. In ADS, substrate and everything is already defined for you. Does that answer your question?
Yes, sir. And sir, what's the difference between S12 and S2? Is there any difference?
It depends. If your device is symmetrical, like circuit is symmetrical, like we saw today, there is no difference. It's the same. But if you have a, say, active transistor sitting at one port, then it's different, because transistor will be basically, it's a voltage controlled current source. So it will be actually transmitting power in one direction more than what power will be coming back to the transistor. So in passive symmetrical devices, usually S1 are same.
Okay, sir.
Okay. So that's it, I guess, for today. It's we are almost done. So so we will then meet next week, right, on Wednesday, your Wednesday, and then we'll go from there. Okay. Have a good day, guys, and good luck with your whatever. Have a nice weekend. Have fun, and we will then meet next week.